Hey, everybody, Dean Crisp in the podcast this week. Going to be joined by Kelly Corvin. We're going to talk about something that absolutely is life-changing. I believe it's really going to have a major impact on you and your life. It's about being significant. The title of this podcast is going to be The Significant You. In other words, how do I determine what is being significant? How am I going to be significant? And what can I do in my life to make sure that every single thing that I do, I'm going to give my very best and perform at the highest level. So I really think you're going to enjoy this podcast. I think you're going to love it. The content's going to be very, very intense, and it's going to be a great one. So sit back, as we always say, turn up that volume and get ready to change your life. Hi, I'm Dean Crisp. Welcome to Straight Talk on Leadership. This is what we'd like to say is the no BS zone, where we give you leadership tips, ideas, and practical suggestions to help you become a top leadership performer. Our goal is simple: help you become the best version of yourself and reach your highest potential as a leader. So sit back, turn up the volume, get ready to change your life. Hey folks, Dean Crisp, as promised, we're back in the podcast booth. And I'll tell you, to be honest, I am really glad we're back in the podcast booth. We've kind of taken a little bit of I don't know if you call it a hiatus. We just kind of took a rest because the content that we give in these podcasts is, right straight from my head and right straight from my experiences. And what we as a company, what we're going through, it comes from me, Kelly, Mackenzie, everybody. The content is just flowing out there. And we really had some things we were working on that we were driving in the company. We just pushed the Significant Leader Award, and we also pushed the Servant Officer class. And so we've had a lot going on. And here we are back in the studio to join you on the podcast, and we are really excited. So we got Kelly with us. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, how are you?
Well, doing good. And really, Kelly was the impetus to kind of get this back together. Kelly kept pushing about, all right, we need the podcast, need the podcast, need to do the podcast. And I was like, I get it. But I'm not one of those people that I just don't want to sit down and write content because I need a podcast. I got to feel it. I've got to experience. I've got to let what I'm talking about really impact my life, or have some part of my life where I can absolutely tell you straight, when we call it straight talk on leadership. In other words, just a straight talk. And that's exactly what we're doing. So I'm excited today about the content of this podcast. It's going to be about being significant. And and the title of it is The Significant You. And I'll tell you right now, this one is probably going to be a couple of parts because there is so much about being significant. And I will tell you this, that the second you decide to be significant in any principal important part of your life, it changes not only you, but it changes the people around you. It changes your organization. It is a major, major difference maker. So Kelly, I really appreciate you joining me today. And so you want to tell folks about what we got coming up, what we got going on before we get started in podcast?
Absolutely. Well, we are booking classes left and right. If you have an interest in any of ours, please go to our website and make a request. Dean is traveling quite a bit. We've got several of our other instructors on the road all over the country. So we're really excited about that. And the whole goal is to make you the best leader you can possibly be. That is the essence of what we do. It's at the heart of what we do. And really, Dean, I'm excited that we're talking about this because we did a lot of planning and effort into getting this award off the out of the starting gate, I guess, if you will, or out to bat, or however you want to use the metaphor. And I believe, according to what Mackenzie's telling me, we've actually issued about 50 of these awards already, which is awesome. But I love the fact that we're going to be talking about the significant you. One other aspect that I'll mention real quick is that if you have not grabbed a copy of Dean's book yet, the leadership recipe. He takes a much deeper dive into some of these areas, and I think you will enjoy the read. So if you're looking for some reading material at the beach, grab a copy, take it with you. And I believe it comes out in e-version next week. So you can take it on your e-reader or grab a hard copy.
Well, Kelly, that book, we just did a podcast on the book, and I thought that,
Mhm.
it was really good to just finally talk about how that came about, kind of the inspiration for it, and why it's relevant. Because I just don't write books to write books. I write them because of the relevance of the times we're in. And when you look at leadership times right now, it's probably one of the most difficult times to ever be a leader, because there's not one style that is absolutely like, the end all be all, to where 35, 40 years ago, the autocratic style of do what I tell you to do was kind of the end all be all. At the end of the day, do what I tell you to do. Now, we still use that, but to be honest with you, it's not as connecting. And these new generations require absolutely so much more, from our leadership. They require us to completely be locked into leadership and kind of adaptive styles and what we need to do. So, you know, when we talk about that, leadership is not, is we always say it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Right.
And so the topics we're talking about being significant, I'm really looking forward to today and talking about that.
Well, no, absolutely. And we started talking about this probably the middle of about this time last year of, do we want to try to create something like this? And I'm just so excited that we got it launched. It's really making a difference where people are receiving it. They get the idea. And this isn't just to get a nice award, although it's beautiful, or a nice certificate, because it's fun to have those. This is really, I want you to talk or spend a few minutes. Let's start the podcast with you just talking for a few minutes about why you created this and what you see as the real, what difference it's making in people that receive it, what you're asking them to commit to, I guess, if you will.
Well, the Significant Leader Award is if you do take all three courses. The one thing, there's one component in being significant, that is you cannot define it, nor can you find anything about it unless you absolutely commit to this one thing, and that's your own personal growth. And when you take all of our courses, or even one of our courses, it signifies to us that you are really interested on your own personal growth. I will tell you this, and this is for our audience on the podcast, that if I had known this 40 years ago, I
Mhm.
guarantee you I would be multiple times better than I am right now, because it delayed my growth. It delayed my desire to grow. It delayed my understanding of growth, all those things. When I tell you this one thing, that's the biggest mistake that is made across this great country by most every law enforcement officer in the country, and also organizationally, we make this major mistake. And this is, when I say this, it will be like a light bulb. It's one of those kaboom kind of moments. When I tell you that your organization is not responsible for your personal growth. And you need to understand that at a major high level. In your organization, they are only going to train you to minimal standards on most every single thing that you're going to do. When they send you to detective school, they don't teach you how to be a master detective. They teach you how to be an intro level detective. When they teach you the death investigation, they don't teach you how to be a major death investigator. They teach you how to be an entry level investigator. When we go to the academy, they don't teach you how to be a master cop. Matter of fact, some agencies, it requires 7, 8, 9, 10 years before you can be a master officer or deputy. And so, they don't do that. They only provide you with minimal training. And when you get in line with everybody else, I will promise you this, it will absolutely stunt your growth as a leader and as a person. Now, I was under the pretense that the organization was responsible for my personal growth. So as a result, it kind of took me about 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years to start realizing, if I don't get my own degree, if I don't start pushing into areas I want to really know, if I don't define what I'm trying to be and what path I'm on, the organization is not going to do it for me. They got too many paths, and those paths, and what we generally do is, people don't realize this, is that personal growth is the number one preventer of burnout. And so as a result of it preventing itself from being burned out, if you want to stop being burned out, grow personally. You got to
Well,
read,
let's
you got to go
tell
to
you.
classes, you got to find a path where you want to lead and do all that stuff. So
Well, and talk
once you
about that for a
understand that,
minute, because personal growth is one of those terms that can be just really open-ended. And a lot of people may not really understand what that means. I, as a former professional myself in city government organizations, a lot of times we're focused on training people for the hard skills, meaning, can you do the job? Can you check the boxes that need to be checked and do all of the black and white things? But then where the rubber really meets the road is your ability to hone your soft skills, I think. And to me, when I hear you say personal growth, that's what I think. Somebody else out there that's listening to this podcast may have a different interpretation of that. But can you spend a few minutes just kind of defining what you mean by that in terms of the personal growth aspect?
well, I'm going to say this, and people are going to be like, "Oh, okay, what's he talking about?" But I'm going to tell you right now, personal growth, the mere word personal growth, prevents a lot of people from personally growing, because personal growth is not an action
True.
word. It's
Yeah.
it's basically a rhetorical word that basically simply means, what is it? Personal growth. Well, that means if I go into the office today and I read one sentence, or I go out there and try one new thing, am I personally growing? Well, yeah, the idea is you are, but you've got to commit to a process of personal growth that really pushes you forward. And that's the same thing with being significant. It's not one single act. It's kind of a process of these things that you do. And personal growth, like I said, is a rhetorical word. It's not an action word. But in order for you to make it an action word, you've got to change your mindset. You got to change your perspective. You have to change what you're trying to accomplish. And you really have to get out there and seek things that you're uncomfortable at and that you're uncomfortable doing. And most people, when they see personal growth, they don't really even know what that means, but it means a lot of things. But if you commit to better yourself every single day, you can't just say, I want to get better. If you're going to personally grow, you have to commit to certain areas of your life and getting better. So, and I don't really want to get off on a tangent on that, because
Sure. No,
we
I understand.
probably need to do a podcast on personal growth, to be
You're
honest with
right.
you.
Yeah, that's a great topic. We'll put that in the
And
parking lot for
we'll,
sure.
yeah, we'll talk about doing that. But what I want to talk about is,
Mhm.
personal growth is very important, and you are totally responsible for your personal growth. I will promise you this, that personal growth matters whether you get promoted or not. Personal growth will make the difference between you spending 30 years miserable in a job or 30 minutes miserable in a job. Because when you get stuck and you think that you're pinned down and you can't really move and go anywhere, it will drain the freaking life out of you. And you have to find a way to reinfuse that life that you once had when you took on that job. And you got to do it. And you got to recognize that we all go through stages of life where personal growth is different. Personal growth is different in the 20s, is different in the 30s, different in the 40s, different in the 50s. But like I said, that's a whole new subject. But let's talk about being significant from the standpoint. Let me define it so people kind of understand what it is. So being significant it means being noteworthy. It means having meaning. It means that you are not just getting up with the idea of finishing the day because it's going to pay your bills. It means that you're going to fulfill certain purposes in your life that you're trying to accomplish. And it also means doing it at a high standard. And so when you think about being significant, it's really about being noteworthy, being something special, doing it at a higher standard that other people would do, taking one more step, picking up a piece of paper. I mean, there's that you wouldn't normally do, going to the shopping center, not with the idea of yes, of course, we run through the doldrums of the form of life and run through and get groceries. But if you see someone that needs help, or somebody in the parking lot, or something that goes on, you just see opportunities. When you're significant, your senses are aroused. Your idea of the world is different. Your mindset's different. And there's three things that absolutely foundationally make us act, be, and do. So act, be, and do. So if you think about those three things, there's three things that make us act, be, and do. Number one, it's what we believe in. It's like, what do we believe in? If I look at, and I'm in a leadership role, and I look at that my job as a sergeant is just to turn out troops, just to fill out paperwork, just to, go through the form of life and do all the administrative stuff, then I'm not going to be significant, because I'm going to see that as just something I have to accomplish. But if I believe that I'm growing future leaders and I'm helping people help them get better, then I can be significant. You see what I'm talking about? So it's like,
Absolutely. That's a great, great analogy.
it's what we believe in. That's number one. And the second thing is, it's what we stand for. Now, there's a difference in what we believe in and what we stand for. What we stand for is what we take a platform on and we launch ourselves on. It's
Mhm.
like if I'm going to operate at a high level of integrity, if I'm going to operate at a high level of respect, if I'm going to operate at a high level of caring for people, if I'm going to operate at a high level of being a supervisor or a leader, then that means that I'm going to push myself to that next level. That doesn't mean I'm going to get promoted to the next level. It just means I'm constantly standing for what's right. I'm constantly pushing forward. I'm constantly doing. So what we believe in and what we stand for are two things that are absolutely foundational in whether we'll be significant or not. And the third thing is, what standard do we hold ourselves to?
Yeah.
If we don't hold ourselves to a major high standard, then none of that other stuff works. When you believe in something, you take a stand for something, and you hold yourself to a high standard of it, guarantee you're going to be significant. And what that means is, you're going to be noteworthy, you're going to have meaning, you're going to have purpose, you're going to have drive, you're going to have positivity, you're going to have enthusiasm. See, that's what being significant is. It's creating that inner motivation, And one thing I'm going to say, and this is the definition, and we've talked about it a little bit, I think, in the book, but this is the definition of leadership. So it's mine, it's Dean Crisp. It's one that took me 40 years to figure out, but it's one that I believe you can live by. And leadership is simply motivating people to do what they don't want to do at a high level.
Yeah.
And you think about that. It's motivating people to do what they don't want to do at a high level. Now, what that means is that the leader has to create their own internal motivation, and they have to create their own external motivation to the employee. And we've talked about how to do that in several ways, and I don't want to get off on that. But it's true that if you hold yourself to a high standard, you create a motivation within yourself that won't let you let things go. Like, it's always, you're pushing to do it better. You're always finding a way to, like, take it to the next level. Like, one of the things you said, Kelly, like, early on in this company, in the formation of this company, you said you wanted to see people level up, level
Mhm.
up their game, which I thought was very good. But that's kind of what being significant is. It's kind of that next level thing, and what I want to talk about in this podcast is that it's simpler than you might think, but it's not ever going to be easy. Being
Right.
significant is not going to be easy, because that means when everybody goes home at 5 o'clock, you're staying till 6. It means that when people are getting up at noon, you're getting up at 6 a.m. It means that you're getting ahead of your day. It means you're understanding direction. And it means all those things. It means that you have decided to step up. And I'm going to challenge everybody in our podcast audience out there. Think about one area that's a principal area of your life, like is absolutely vital in your life, and ask yourself, am I significant in that area? Hey, listen, every kid on the planet wants significant parents. If you ask them what kind of parents you want, none of them say crappy. None of them say not committed. None of them say those who don't care. None of them say those who don't provide. Now, does that mean you're out there giving them everything? No. Does that mean you're out there buying all that? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means you're providing the moral support, the personal support, the integral support that they need to grow up. You're just being significant. You're there for them. You're talking to them. You're learning. You're listening, and all those things. That's being significant parent. Or do you stay on your damn phone all night long?
No, that's right. And what I was going to just interject there, when you were talking about the definition of what it means to be significant as having notoriety, and then we were talking, I loved what you were saying with those three components. When I think about the people that I consider to be excellent leaders, they're people that I want that are doing things and acting in a way that they may not be famous at all outside of their immediate department or organization, but they're doing the things that other people want to emulate. And to the role of parenting, like you said, you're doing things that your kids want to emulate and be proud of. They want to know you, they want your approval, but they're doing it in such a way that it's that's what makes them significant, is as parents or as leaders.
Well, being significant is when your kid's got a t-ball game and nobody's keeping score and it's 97 degrees outside. And instead of you walking around being on your phone, you're paying attention to their at bat and you're encouraging them. It doesn't mean you're screaming in the audience. And it means you're providing support for them. And you're basically saying, whatever you're going to do, I got support for you in, that area of your life. And there's many phases of significant, but to be honest with you, it's not notoriety as much as it is being noteworthy. It's where you make a mark and you say, yeah, that was pretty good. That's significant. It's not an unobtainable mark where, brilliance and all that stuff. It just simply means that you're noteworthy, that you make a difference, that you are going to push yourself to be the absolute best you can be. And the one thing I found that since we started this program for the classes that we take, that I am way more mindful of significance. Like I'll give you an act of simple significance, and it didn't mean nothing to me. It didn't mean nothing to the hotel, didn't mean nothing to the people there, but it meant something to do it. I was in Nashville and it was cold as crap and it was raining and I'd driven down. So I'd taken some things like a little, a couple extra things, and I didn't really hang on my clothes. So I didn't put them in a suitcase. So I had to put them on one of those racks that you've got in a hotel,
Right.
Well, I couldn't find one. And when I went up, it was on the 5th floor and I had to go get it. And then I brought it back and then I used it and then I put it up. And then I thought to myself, well, the person who used that before was only mindful of themselves, because when they finished with it, they just slid it out in the hallway and they didn't take it down and didn't make sure anybody else would use it. They were that's not being significant. Now you might say, well, that's a hotel and they should do it. Well, okay. There's probably somebody for every job in the world, but if somebody doesn't do extra, it don't get done. And you think about it.
Yeah.
So when I left, I had to go find another one. It was on a floor. It was cold and it was rainy as crap. And I mean, pouring down rain. And I had my clothes and I got them on that little luggage thing and I took it out to my car and I just kind of threw them in there. And I was like, oh my God, I just want to leave this in the parking lot. Like, I just want to leave this thing in the parking lot and I want to drive off. And then I thought to myself, nope, you got to be significant. So take the buggy, pull it back in, put it exactly where people know it is and find it. So the next person, get a towel, wipe the dang thing off, and then make it usable for the next person. Did I want to do it? Nope. It was 7:30 in the morning. I had to teach class. I had a 6-hour or 5-hour drive. I was like, really simple. Just leave it, leave it in the parking lot. They'll get it. Somebody else will do it. And so, see, that's an act of significance. Whether you think that's a major significant, that wasn't flying a plane and that wasn't jumping out of an airplane. That was just a simple act of significance. Or picking up trash. Like if there's something in the parking lot or there's something in the hallway at your office, or, most of us have break rooms and you'll see people going there and eat and they'll leave crap everywhere. Well, they're not being significant. All they're doing is thinking about themselves. They think it's their house and somebody else is going to clean it up. When you start doing simple acts like those, the big ones become a lot easier. And
Absolutely. I
and
like
that's
those
the thing.
examples.
Yeah, and that's the thing you got to realize. It's the little acts of significance that really will really matter, because they will lead to bigger acts. Now, let's talk about the importance of being
Mhm.
significant, which I think is extremely important. Number one, it provides clarity for your life.
Mhm.
It gives you a clear kind of direction. Like, what am I going to be? Okay, I'm going to be significant in this area. And that means that, in the morning, I just don't go sit down and close my door. It means I walk out and talk to people, say, how you doing? How was your weekend? What went on? What's going on? Hey, how are you? Da, 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 da. It provides clarity. It gives you a direct, it gives you more than direction, but it makes life more clear.
Sure.
It's like when you're going to perform at a really high standard, everything you're going to do, then there's no question. And one of the reasons why most people don't perform at a high level, or they don't do things they don't want to do. So in other words, like working out or doing all that stuff, is they begin to negotiate with themselves. And when a person negotiates with themselves, they always lower the standard of what they're going to do. They'll be like, I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah, I'm too busy today. I can't make that happen. I can't do it. And what I've seen is that, like, for me, it makes it clear that I'm not going to not do what I need to do. Like make a phone call, return a call, send an email. Uh, it just, like doing this podcast, us getting back to
Yeah.
doing this podcast, it's like, before we came on air this morning, oh my God, I was like, I told you, look, give me a few minutes. I had so much
Mhm.
crap going on. Um, and I just felt like my whole mind was like, you don't need to do this, push it, push it, push it. And I was like, no, stop, be significant, do what you said you're going to do. And we fight those battles every single day, but being
Sure.
significant gives you clarity. It gives you clearness. What are your thoughts?
Oh, no, I totally agree. I mean, I think that the hardest thing you do every day is to do the things that seem repetitive. I mean, you always use a great example of exercise or working out, but that is something that if you have set as a personal goal that you want to be as healthy as you can be, then that becomes part of your routine. And it's really easy to negotiate with yourself like that. Like, oh, sure. Yeah, I'll have that piece of chocolate cake and just work out extra hard tomorrow. And as my mother always used to say, tomorrow never comes. It's all about today. So, what are you doing today to make things happen for the future you? I think is the way to look at it. 5 years from now, when you look back, have you done the things that you can be proud of and that you can say, thank you? You made me a better person.
Well, I think that being significant frees you from your own prison. I think that we all imprison ourselves in the doldrums of life, and things become very kind of just
Routine.
routine. They become just average, and they just become, and we miss things that are really important. It's like, uh, this is, you're going to think I'm crazy. I live in the mountains of Western North Carolina, which I love. The
Mhm.
freaking mountains. I love living here. But I was with my granddaughters last week. I had four of them up with me, and we were driving through, and in my neighborhood, you can see this mountain. And one of them said, Grandpa, look at that mountain, how big that is. And I said, you know what? They live in South Carolina, kind of in the, it's not as mountainous there. And I said, yeah, that is beautiful. One of them in the back said, boy, it's so pretty. And I thought the simplicity of a child
Mhm.
viewing the mountains, how many times I've seen that, and how many times if I'd have just freed myself from my own adult imprisonment of my mind, with everything we got going on in life, we're so caught up in, what's going on, we forget the moment we're in. And so being
Mhm.
significant kind of frees you from that moment. I was like, you know what? You're right. That's pretty dang significant right there, that you noticed that and made me notice it.
Right.
That's what significant people do, is they notice things, and they provide other people with the clarity of noticing that as well. So it gives you like clarity. You see things other people don't see. uh, it clarifies the why a lot in a lot of things we do. when you're being significant, there's not a question of the whys. Well, why? Because it's what we should be doing,
Right.
and it provides a lot of clarity. The second thing it does is it, without question, gives you direction.
Mhm.
It gives you complete 100% direction in life, like being significant. It means you hold yourself to a very high standard in every single thing that you do. Now, this is where, it's kind of like when I say the word, I said personal growth is not an action word. It's kind of a rhetorical word. But if I'm holding myself to a high standard in my personal growth, it means that I'm finding ways every single day to absorb personal growth. Sometimes personal growth goes by us and we don't catch it. We don't notice it. We don't even want to because it's painful or whatever that is. But when you talk about being significant, it gives you direction. It's like, I am going to be absolutely significant. And if you think about it, our class design is designed for the significant because we do the intentional leadership, which kind of gives you that understanding of leadership, that adaptability, that ability to find your styles, that ability to find what makes you tick as a leader. Because organizationally, most organizations think the rank does that, but the
Right.
rank can come nowhere near giving you what you need to be a leader. The
Right.
rank gives you the authority, and it gives you access to people. People give you permission to lead them. And in order for you to do that, you've got to connect to them. You got to do things you need to do. And so when you look at direction, being significant gives you clear direction on what I need to do and where I'm going. And it provides that, like our class intentional leadership does that. Then you got the servant officer, which connects you with why we did this in the first place. And that course is designed to provide a burnout strategy to bulletproof you. Like if you got one things that I tell people this all the time in leadership, and I write it on the board when I teach, I say, we're going to try to help bulletproof you, because the more bulletproof you are, then the more resilient you'll be, but the more you'll hang in there and the better decisions you make. Because if you let everything impact you, you're not gonna do something at a really good level. So being significant really gives you that direction, but the servant also does. Then the master leader we make you execute at a high significant level all week, and we hold you to that standard all week, and we push you towards the significant you, which I think is important, because all of us have to find our significant you. What's inside of us that really helps us find that significant you. And later in the podcast, I'm going to give some of those tips about how do you find that significant you. And then when you talk about direction, it just is so compelling.
No, absolutely. I agree. And that was a great description of how those three go together to create the significant leader. I really like that. One thing I think that if I'm listening to this, I would love for you to just maybe offer an example from your own personal life would be, how do you provide your own direction for yourself? And how do you hold yourself to that higher standard? You've talked in the past when we've done the 21-day challenge and some other things of that nature, the importance of the effort and commitment and always pushing yourself just 1% more, do one more thing. And I didn't know if that's kind of where you go with that on your own personal journey, or if there's some other thoughts in there with that.
Well, I told you what really puts me on my path is, one, what I believe in. Like, I believe I'm trying to reach my highest level of potential. And those things change as your life changes. And I don't want to ever be caught off guard for that phase of my life of reaching that highest level of potential. Let me say this, and this may sound a little crazy, but what's interesting is when we get older in life, we're still chasing ourselves in the 20s.
It's true.
Like, when you're 30, you're chasing your 20s. When you're 40, you're chasing your 30s. When you're 50, you're chasing your 40s. You're 60, you're chasing your 50s. When you're 70, you're chasing your 60s. And all those years, we don't ever forget them. So we're constantly chasing ourselves of what we were, not what we're trying to be. And when you chase yourself to what you were, you are going to limit your growth majorly,
I love
because
that.
that's kind of like what used to be. That's not what is. And what used to be is cool and it's good and we loved it. But what is totally what is. It's different. And what's now is really, really important in your life. So we're in such a hurry through the stages of our life that we lose the significant, because we let all those scars of the 20s and all those scars of the 30s, instead of us letting them grow us, we let that keep us down. We let that like intimidate us. We let it create a fear factor. Um, we were talking the other day in our meeting we had on Friday, which was a great meeting. As a matter of fact, I think we maybe do a podcast about encouraging people to have that same kind of meeting. And man, because it was very enlightening.
I agree. Yeah.
And one of the things that I remember Mackenzie said that, I was talking to her the other day when we were talking about failure. And I told her, I said, if you're going to be significant, you're going to have to get used to failure, because being significant means you are going to fail probably more than you're going to succeed. And the one thing that you have to realize is, when I fail, what do I do about that? And if you're constantly chasing what you were, and you're constantly chasing what you wanted to happen and it didn't happen, man, you are living in the past majorly, which is it's a reason why people are not very significant, because they got too many scars on them. They got too many roads that were just dead ends. They got too many things that were just not, just didn't impact them on a great way. If you look at every significant person in your life, I guarantee you're going to find people who fought through failures and failures and failures and didn't give up. But if you look historically at significant figures, and I'm not trying to get people to be historic significant figures, I'm trying to get them to be significant at home. I'm trying to get them to be significant in their relationship. I'm trying to get them to be significant in the way they treat people. I'm trying to get them to be significant where they live, in their own self. When you look at historical figures, there is no historical figure. Let's just think about for a second, which I don't talk about this historical figure enough, but this is a historical figure that I know, that I have, that really it's just so amazing. This human being, the way that he went from one part of his life to another part of his life. That's Nelson Mandela.
Mm-hmm.
That dude spent 27 years in a small 8x10 cell in his beliefs and because of his skin color. Now, there were in his earlier days that they were very violent and they caused a lot of havoc because they weren't being treated equal. There's a lot of things happened there.
Mm-hmm.
And Mandela went through a lot. But to come out and become the president of his country proves the fact that he was more forward thinking than he was backward thinking. And that's the key in being significant, is you've got to be forward thinking. And when Nelson Mandela came out, if you watched a movie or read the books about him, his entire staff thought that, the staff for the prior president thought they were going to be fired. Their security officials, all those people thought. And Mandela said, well, if I did that, I would be living the same principles of those who were before me. And now we've got to live at a higher standard. We've got to do better than that. And I thought, man, that's so compelling to look at somebody who, you think about this for a second. If I took 27 years of your life and I said, you will not see your children, you are only going to be on an island where it's like Alcatraz, you can't get off, and you're going to have to spend 27 years there. Would you come out with a much harsher attitude or much better attitude?
I think most of us would probably be pretty bitter about it.
Oh my God. We'd come out.
I know even his wife, Winnie, was very bitter about it, as you can only imagine. And he even had to coach her on that. Same concept that, the only way that we actually succeed at what we want to see happen in South Africa is if we're forward thinking. And one of the quotes I just pulled up of his is that he wrote about that I thought kind of puts it in is it is in your hands to make a better world for all who live in it. And that a winner is a dreamer who never gives up. So to me, that's what you teach with all of the classes that contribute to the significant leader. And that is that you teach people, find what your inner drive is, make it work for you, and never give up. You know, when you face failure, which is inevitable, regroup, find a new strategy to make it happen.
Well, one of the things that is kind of a gift that I've kind of
Mhm.
discovered, or I give myself, um, and I love this. And if I wasn't trying to be significant, I wouldn't do it. But it was back when I was like really going through a rough patch of leadership and just not really digging it and not being happy and just miserable. Um, every day was a challenge, and you know, I had those dark periods in my career, in my life. And you know, I remember like a gift I gave to myself that literally changed me. And it was, first of all, I changed my mindset. And if you've been in the class, you know the story. If you read some of the books, you know some of the story. But, you know, when I changed my mindset, the one gift I gave myself that honestly I live by every single day today, and it is, if you really want to help people, see them for what they can be, not what they are. And, you know, I swear it's like it killed my negative thoughts on people. I was always bitching, whining, moaning, or whatever about stuff. And I still, you know, we all still fall into those traps. But it's like, if I can see you for what you can be, not what you are, that's the greatest gift that you can give yourself and give someone else. That's being significant. It's significance in our thoughts. And being significant heightens your your senses and your awareness of stuff around you. It kind of enhances what we perceive and understand. It opens your mind. It creates a growth mindset. You know, being significant, it does all those things that are really important. Now, the last thing it does, and there's a lot more, but I'm just going to stick to these 3
Absolutely,
points.
those three, sure.
The last one is resilience. Being significant creates an absolute resilience that you cannot buy. I'm gonna tell you something right now. If you were to ask me, you know, if you were to ask me, like, I got a new leader and I really want to help them, I'd say, okay, if you really want to help them, start developing bulletproof skill sets that keeps them resilient. Like, because I tell people this all the time, and this is the one thing that I want to say to a lot of people out there in our podcast audience is, if you're going to work somewhere 30 years, or you're going to be in this profession 25, 30 years, I don't care what it is. Now, please don't take this to be rude, crude, or ill-mannered. Just take it for what it is. If you're going to work for 20 or 30 years, any place, if you're going to work in the organization, you're going to work in law enforcement, you got to remember this: the organization you work for is going to screw you. They are going to do things to you that you're not going to like. They're going to transfer you. They're going to make you work overtime. They're going to do things that you want to do, you ain't going to do. They're going to send some other people to school instead of you. It's called administrative betrayal. And
Mhm.
when you get administrative betrayal flowing through your veins, resiliency goes out the door, because
Yeah.
you want to fight back. You want to get people back. You want to swing at them. You want to do whatever you want to do. But if you're going to be significant, you got to drop all that, and you got to find a way to control yourself to be resilient to where you bounce back. Now, what does resiliency mean? If I were to define not being resilient, I'd say you get bent out of shape. Being resilient means that when you bend yourself back into shape, that you're stronger than you were before. And so being significant creates a strength inside of you that will completely change when bad things happen. And I'll tell you right now, not to wax biblical, but the Bible, when it talks about hard times, it doesn't say if they come, it says when they come.
Right. I mean, when you
And
think about Job, he's like the perfect example biblically of somebody who is resilient. He's got that inner connection that he needs, that inner why that propels him forward.
well, like I say, you create, and being significant, you know, it's kind of like the state of who we are is three things: our beliefs, what we stand for, and absolutely what the standard would we hold ourselves to. And when you do that, it's like you become resilient pretty quickly. And, we're all going to go through those administrative betrayals. We're all going to go through those things that we don't like, those transfers, the promotions, we're going to go through them. And being significant will help make you more bulletproof. It will create the resilience inside of you that is really, really important. So what I encourage you to do is go out there and find the significant you. For all of us at LHLN, this has been a great podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Please pass this along, download it, send it to others, share it. Let us know, send us your comments. And as always, we say, until next time, I'm Dean Chris.
You have been listening to Straight Talk on Leadership with Dean Crisp. Please be sure to join us for part 2 on August 22nd, 2023, where Dean will continue his discussion on how to be significant in your own life and how this concept revolutionized and transformed his own leadership. Please be sure to grab a copy of Dean's books and start your own personal growth journey by reading them. Another great way you can help us is by following us on social media as well as your favorite podcast streaming platform. By following, liking, commenting, and sharing your favorite social media posts and your favorite podcast episodes, you help us spread the leadership message. Lastly, be sure to go ahead and check out our classes and begin your own significant you journey today. Thank you for listening, and be sure to put your leadership into action every day. Until next time.